I got a question for you. What does it take to go from a one-bedroom apartment with food stamps to training astronauts, CEOs, and celebrities in a private gym on Manhattan's Upper East Side? In this episode of Legacy Unscripted, I sat down with Michael Margulies, co-founder of Core Fitness NYC, and his story floored me. We're talking about a guy who grew up in chaos. He faced abuse and buried trauma, and he still found a way to build something powerful with his wife and turn it into a 30-year legacy business. He shares how the image of a young Arnold Schwarzenegger sparked his transformation, how his grandmother's belief carried him forward, and how he bootstrapped Core Fitness, get this, on gold stock, loan sharks, and raw hustle. This one's personal, powerful, and packed with perspective. If you've ever needed a reminder that your past doesn't define your path, this is it. Now hit play. Welcome to Legacy Unscripted, sponsored by Progeny Coaching. This is the podcast where sports and business collide. I'm your host, Russ Katzman, and here we'll skip the fluff and get straight to the hustle. From athletes turned entrepreneurs to impact-driven business leaders, we dive into the wins, the lessons, and some of those failures that make legacies worth living. Today, I'm happy to welcome Michael Margulies, co-owner of Core Fitness New York City. Michael, thanks for joining me.
Thank
It's
you,
interesting
Rob.
we got that co-owner in there. Tell me about who you're in business with.
I'm in business with my lovely wife, Denise Margulies. We've been in business for 31 years. We started the business together in 1996, the day that my daughter was born.
Hmm.
At the time, I was in the building of 12 East 86th Street, which I'm still currently in, but we were in a studio apartment and we were running a business to train obese patients for a famous diet doctor, Dr. Stephen Lamb, who wrote the best-selling book, Thinner at Last. And then he included me in a portion of the book as part of his treatment team. And it was a very exciting time because our daughter was born on the 26th of give me one second. February 29th, 1996,
Okay.
the day after Core Fitness opened. But before that, we ran a little studio apartment in the same building in apartment 1125. And Dr. Lamb would send us his obese patients and we would, follow his instructions on how to get these obese patients to lose weight. And it's a very interesting thing because he was cutting edge at the time. He was part of the fen craze. And today we're dealing with, other diet drugs, various forms of diet drugs. And it's just so interesting the way these things go in cycles. But at that time, it helped so many people, but then there were terrible side effects to those drugs. And then
Sure.
the lawsuits followed. While running this business, we one day get a knock at our door, and then a notice was left that you have 30 days to vacate this studio apartment and stop using it for business purposes. So we were in trouble. The business was about to be closed, and we didn't know what to do. We had a newborn, and we didn't know what to do. So they gave us an opportunity to develop this whole gym in the basement of 12 East 86th Street. They said, either you take over this commercial space or, that's it, your business is going to close down. So I chose to take over this commercial space. My wife had an uncle in construction and he helped us to finance the building of Core Fitness. And within about a year, the business was open and we were up and running and things were, difficult, but doable. And we're excited to be business owners, real business owners, no longer operating in an illegal capacity.
Yeah.
We still had a relationship with Dr. Stephen Lamb. He was still sending us patients to the new space, but I had to develop a whole other clientele. Originally, the business was called Med Fitness because we were trainers working for doctors. Then eventually, a few years into the business, someone suggested, why are we just doing medical fitness? Why don't we do fitness for everyone? Then the name Core Fitness was born. And from then on, it was history. But before I came to Core Fitness, I started out, working in the famous Vertical Club as just a regular weight room trainer. And then eventually I rose the ranks and became the top selling trainer for Bally's. And I became the number one trainer for the Bally's Corporation in the United States in sales one summer, which I was
Wow.
quite excited about. Not to mention, I got to rub elbows with very famous celebrities like Brooke Shields, Fabio. Arnold Schwarzenegger would occasionally visit. I never got to meet him personally then, but I saw him quite a bit when he would come to New York visiting the Vertical Club. And it was just a great place to be.
Hmm. So talk to me about so this was 30 years ago, right? I mean, this industry has changed incredibly. Talk to me about how those early relationships benefit you today, because you and I have talked about even some of your more current clientele, and it's kind of a who's who, which is
I
it's
actually
always fun.
share, I want to share the way Core Fitness was financed because that is a really great part of the story.
Okay,
So
yeah, let's get there.
while I was a trainer, up and coming, even though I was making a living, I was still living in Manhattan, very expensive, and I was lucky enough to get a studio apartment a few blocks away from the gym. I started training this furniture mogul. I won't mention his name, except to say that he's a furniture mogul, and concealing an affair that he was having with his wife. So I trained him. I would train his girlfriend. They were incredibly nice to me. And they would tell me that, so and so was very unhappy in his marriage and that they had this beautiful relationship and that they appreciated all the fitness and fun I was bringing into their life. And Christmas came, and all of a sudden I was handed um, $36,000 of gold stock. I won't even say which.
Wow.
And my client told me at the time, whatever you do, Michael, don't sell this because it's going to be worth a fortune one day. Well, the opposite happened. It went from $36,000, as I kept holding it, till about
Yeah,
$10,000.
yeah.
Okay. So when Core Fitness was being built, I took that $10,000 and then I took $500 advance from one of my clients who was extremely generous, called every single financing company in the world because I was only like 26 years old at the time. I had no credit history. And
Yeah.
so what to do is I had to beg, borrow, and steal to basically allow one of these loan shark places to give me like 28% interest on the equipment. And then I found this other company called King Fitness Equipment Company that's no longer in business. And they helped also to give me some really good deals on equipment. And and between that and my uncle, Jimmy, God rest his soul, that's how Core Fitness was able to get started.
It's interesting because a lot of times people will have maybe one of those weird kind of stories of, oh, I had this client that I was working with and they helped me finance it, or I had an uncle or an aunt or somebody like that I find. You've got them all, right? You got an Uncle Jimmy, you've got a cooperative vendor, you've got a loan shark, you've got a client that wants to work with you. All of this kind of balled up into one just to kind of get you financed.
Exactly. And it was really touch and go. And just so lucky that people were just so supportive of us and our young family and wanted to see us make it. People showed a lot of love, and our clients that were coming were very diehards, and they loved the fact that it was a private gym and that I had a lot of knowledge. Even at that time, I had a tremendous amount of knowledge for the times. And it was just a wonderful situation. And I had felt like I'd come a million miles away from growing up as a kid growing up on welfare, Marcy, with food stamps. I had a schizophrenic mother. My father died when I was 12. My parents separated at 3. We were living without electricity for a while. My grandmother came and she took care of us, and she always made me believe that I was better than what I was. And she was just such a terrific lady, and she really made me instilled so much confidence. I think part of that instillment is how I instill confidence in my clients to this day. And there really wasn't much to do in Canarsie, Brooklyn. And then one day I was looking at these magazines that a friend of mine had, and I saw pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger and other bodybuilders.
Yeah.
And I said, man, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I was a kid that was not popular when I was growing up. Felt very isolated because I didn't have the traditional nuclear family. My parents were divorced. My mother, acted out all the time. Other mothers didn't want the kids to come over and play. I was beaten up and bullied in parks, and it was really not much going on, but something clicked. I was about 12 years old. I was in junior high school one day, this kid was picking on me every day, asking me
Mm.
for lunch money, and I started giving him lunch money. And then I realized that it can't continue. And then one day he threatened me with a firearm. It's all true. And I started to develop a lot of courage. It took me a lot of courage to go to the dean of the school and to tell him what was going on because my life was in danger, or at least I thought my life was in danger. When I look back, maybe my life wasn't in danger, it's just a scare tactic. They
Yeah.
took the police came, they took the kid, they removed him from school, and he never bothered me again. And from then on, I started lifting weights, working out all the day. I went from a very wimpy, unathletic kid to a very strong kid. Within a year, I gained like 25 pounds of muscle, and
Wow.
and I was just a completely different human being. And I had, I had no direction. And I became very strong, very fast, but no one was ever there to say, "Hey, Michael, maybe you should try out for football. Maybe you should play basketball. Maybe you should do, sprint. You should do something, with all that talent, physical talent that you developed." And I just kept lifting weights and reading books about Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then I started to compete as a teenager. It's a very detailed, heartfelt story. My father died when I was 12. um, and then when I was about 12 years old, I discovered that I had a cousin who called herself Aunt. And within 24 hours of my father dying, she came to the house. And because she was rich, she had influence and she obviously was right about everything, even if she wasn't. She then said, "I'm no longer your cousin, I'm your aunt. And I'm going to tell you what to do so that you don't end up a failure like everybody else in your family." And so she made my grandmother take out loans, and we started interviewing at different private schools. And eventually I got into a Delphi Academy private school. I,
Wow.
to- I totally got into education. My father was a brilliant man, except that he let his life spiral out of control because my mother had all this schizophrenia that he wasn't aware of when they got married. He was promised that they were going to help him start a business by the in-laws. He was sort of hoodwinked into the situation. He had kids with my mother. He couldn't take it anymore. He lost his businesses and then he decided to leave us. And I remember when I was 3 years old, I was hanging on to his leg as he left the house. And he then resurfaced about 4 or 5 years later. He told us that he had taken over another family's life and he started to send this family on different missions. Like he would send them to the airport in the middle of the night. He'd ask them for money. He began to make them believe that he was the Messiah. In fact, this whole other family, when we would show up for holidays and my father reappeared back in my life with their money, they would make toys for us. They'd make model airplanes for us. They would treat us like royalty. And as a kid, you can't even process all this.
No.
And then when my father died, when I was about just before my 13th birthday, and then my older brother was then having to tell this family that my father was not the Messiah, that you were misled, he was just a man, and that basically he tricked you into believing all this stuff. And he basically set them free of this responsibility. And, my brother then went on to law school. Then he started having all these issues with, if I'm going off of on a tangent, please let me know.
Hmm.
Um,
I think
but
the intriguing part about this, and we can get back and drill as far into it as you want. The intriguing part about this is that when you hear people with stories like this, uh, it goes one of two directions, right? You could have used any one of these things as an excuse to go off and do whatever, right? Start bullying people yourself, get into drugs, get into alcohol, never go to school again, beat the streets of Brooklyn to do whatever. Go play baseball in the corner all day, whatever you wanted to, but you didn't, right? And so, when part of the purpose of this podcast, as we talked about, is to get these stories out there to share with other entrepreneurs. And they're not always successful stories that we get out there, or they're not always immediate successes. And so having the opportunity to make a choice in your life and to find something to get you out of where you were to get to you to where you are today, whether it be that ant individual in your life, or whether it's the Arnold influence. By the way, I do want to throw this out here before I forget. for anybody on the podcast who can help us go 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon on this and get Michael to meet Arnold, I think it would be tremendous. All right, I think you having an opportunity to do that would be awesome. So I'm
Actually,
going to throw it out to our listeners.
believe it or believe it or not, I'm very close to meeting Arnold because
Okay.
my cl one of my clients is the president and CEO of Zimmer Biomet, which is one of the world's largest healthcare companies.
Yeah.
There, everything that goes into your body, a hip replacement, a knee replacement, a medical implant, they do it all. They're the cutting edge. It's a multi-billion dollar company that's global.
Yeah.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger is the CMO of Zimmer Biomet. Ivan Tornos, who's the president, he and I have become great friends. I'm his trainer.
Yeah.
I thank God for Ivan every day. He's an incredible human being. He friends anyone who's of substance. You don't have to be another CEO. You don't have to be someone in the medical field. You can be anybody. And Ivan is just the greatest guy and just one of the best friends to have. And I'm
That's
just so
awesome.
lucky. So Ivan has a personal relationship and friendship with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he is working on bringing both of us together in his company, which
That
would
would be
be
spectacular. That
would
would be
yes,
spectacular. I think just because, and we go back over the story that you've had, but just because, whether it's Arnold or whoever it was that was in that magazine, that you looked at that and said, that's me. I want to be that person, right? Because we have people do that every day. We have kids do that every day. We have other entrepreneurs that do that every day. They look to somebody in this world of social media. They find somebody to gleam onto and say, that's my mentor. That's who I want to become someday. And for you to have that kind of influence on your life and to have a chance to maybe meet him, incredible.
well, and I'll tell you something even more interesting that really motivated me to be who I am now. It's a very interesting story. So when I was working out, I finally went on to Clark University. And while I was working out in Clark University, I was working out in a Gold's Gym there. And guess who was working out next to me every day? It was Jay Cutler. And he became Mr. Olympia 2 times. And basically, we're at the same level. The only thing that made us different was that he decided to go on and, do performance enhancing drugs. And it was obvious, and no one's ever going to deny that he didn't do it. He doesn't deny that he did it. He worked his ass off. You can't just take performance enhancing drugs and become a Mr. Olympia. Is a goat. He's one of the goats of bodybuilding of all time and very inspirational, even with the drugs. But we both made decisions in life. He made a decision to work like an animal, to take those drugs and become one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. I decided and realized I didn't want to take that chance. I didn't want to take that risk. I had gone through so much to get to Clark University, to be this big, strong, muscular person. I didn't, even then, I knew that steroids could have very adverse effects on the body permanently. And when I started reading about all the side effects, I said, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing what I do naturally. And I didn't succumb to the pressure of taking steroids. And so today I'm just a guy who trains some of the most influential and famous people in the world. And I'm in a basement on East 86th Street in Madison, and the people love me every day. And I'm not a multi-millionaire like Jay Cutler, and I don't own all this real estate and do all these endorsements, but that's my path, and he chose his path.
Well, we all find our joy and our true benefit out of life in different ways. And some
Right,
people do it with money, some people do it with family, some people can have the luxury of doing it with both, some
right,
people do it with
right,
traveling. We just
right.
finished talking about my vacation and some of the time we take away. And to your point, I mean, what did you tell me about vacations? People don't do what?
They never regret taking vacations. If they look back at the end of their lives, they're like, oh, I'm so upset. I took too many vacations. I should have spent more days at work. No one ever says that.
Yep.
You have to reboot. You have to recharge. You have to be good to yourself.
And I think it gives you that opportunity, entrepreneur or otherwise, gives you an opportunity to not only recharge yourself, but to recharge your time with your family and friends and whoever it is that's valuable to you in your life. And I think we all need that ability to recenter occasionally.
Growing up with a very fractured family, my goal in this world is that my family is everything. And I feel that I'm a great success because unfortunately have two children. One is each are successful to me in their own way. My younger daughter is summa cum laude, and
Hmm.
she graduated at the top of her class from University of Central Florida, and she's in the
Go
hotel
Knights.
industry right now. She's young and she's doing well, and she's clawing her way to management. And I'm very excited about her success. And she's just an incredible young lady, and she has a lot to offer the world. My other daughter, unfortunately, is the sweetest, most loving person in the world, but she's afflicted with four different things.
Mm,
She has an eating disorder, she has schizoaffective disorder, she's recovering from anorexia, and she's cognitively impaired.
mm,
And she just did a 90-day stay in the hospital. She's been in and out of hospitals for 10 years. It has sort of turned me into a quote unquote advocate for mental health care.
yep.
And I learned a lot of things along the way. I could have never afforded all the care. Luckily, she has Medicaid benefits. I could have never afforded all that care for her. The mental health system and the Medicaid system in particular makes individuals who are mentally ill or suffer from eating disorders sometimes feel that they are not worthy of coverage. They
Mm,
get denied sometimes by the insurance company for higher level of care for mental health. And then they just accept the denial or they don't have an advocate for them. I was lucky enough that I had a client working at a very big law firm who was part of what's called New York Lags, where they do pro bono law work. And he referred me to somebody to get my daughter to get the proper help. And I feel so lucky that I was referred to New York Lag. And there is a woman there that's a warrior. Her name is Domna Antonitis. And she sent out 250 emails to Medicaid to get my
wow.
decision for my daughter's mental health coverage overturned and got her the help that she needed. And if not for Domna, I don't know where my daughter would be today. And I just want to let people know out there that don't accept no. If somebody's getting benefits in Medicaid, guess what? You're entitled to those benefits too. It's unlimited. If you are a person, if you are lucky enough to be a citizen of the United States of America and you are disabled, you can get your Medicaid benefits. You just need proper advocacy. So.
No, and I think that's incredible. And I think the thing to note there is,
Well, when I see people who have mental illness, I have a completely different vision than other people. I feel for them. I have empathy for them. And when I've gone to all these different hospitals over the year, if I see other patients that look like they're not getting what they're getting, I often talk to their parents. I talk to them and I tell them you can get more of what you need. It's out there. Don't accept no. That's what I tell them.
that's incredible. Yeah, I think
Yes.
that the key to that is this emphasis on mental wellness, right? Because and it's ironic and kind of tangential the way it comes out of you because of what you do as your day job, right? You've been for 30 years you've been building an organization to help us have healthy, more flexible, more strength, endurance, cardio, whatever it is we're building into our
Yes.
bodies, and
Mhm.
yet the most valuable piece of that vessel is the brain and what's going on between our ears. And so that mental wellness and finally having a platform to where you can pursue and push that, I think is wonderful that you can advocate for that.
You have to wake up every morning. You have to love yourself. You have to give yourself a break. We're all not perfect. We're all striving to be better people. And we all want the same thing, love and acceptance. That's all we want.
Amen. Yeah, it's interesting. I heard, did I read it or did I hear it not long ago? It was before my vacation, probably a month and a half ago. I saw somebody put somewhere that uh, I'm going to, if you had the ability to only have one car your entire life, you take pretty good care of that car, right?
Absolutely.
It's what you've got in your body, right? You're not
Exactly.
getting another one. You've got one body for your entire life. What are
You
you
know,
going to do
that's,
with it?
I use a similar, we're like a ship, we're like a vessel, you know. Actually, I made a poem one time. We're all like spaceships. We're all shutting our parts to our final destination. And basically, you have to love yourself in whether when you're young, when you're middle aged, when you're older. I have the experience every day of working with people from teenage to 90s. And so I get a chance to see the aging process, what happens to people. And there are certain commonalities. I have to protect people from themselves. Even when a young person comes to me, if they're not properly conditioned, if they can't move properly, they're going to get injured. And if they get injured, if they're playing a sport, their career is over. So I have to teach people about proper warm ups, proper ways to move their body, find exercises that will benefit them, not hurt them. It's like
Hmm.
being in a laboratory. And I have to protect people from themselves. I'm not more than just a trainer. I'm like a bodyguard for people in the gym because the ego can be one of the most dangerous pieces of gym equipment ever invented. So I have to protect people from their own egos.
I love that. I'd never heard it said that way, um, but it's a great point. Talk to me. We kind of covered a lot about your background and a lot of that drives your motivation and what has
Right.
driven this passion in you.
Yes.
Talk to me
Yes.
about the business side of this and the lessons that you've had to learn in business and how to be an owner. You had all of that. You had to kind of figure out ways to raise money early on before
Yes.
raising money was even popular and all this kind of stuff. But
You
what are
have to make
those
a
key
decision.
business lessons that you learned along
You
the
have
way?
you have to make a decision. You're not going to profit every time you do hard work every day. I mean, I profit when I do a session, of course. I profit if a trainer comes in and rents space here. But what I'm saying is, even when I'm off the clock, I want to make sure that the place looks great, looks clean, and is inviting to people every day. I want to come in with an atmosphere and create an atmosphere and an attitude that, hey, this is it's like another world when you come down to this basement. You're not thinking about the outside world. You're going to put all your problems aside for that hour and you're going to get the most out of the experience and the most out of my teaching. And you're going to leave feeling like a better person. I actually used a phrase from yoga. I say to them, take the positive energy that I bestowed upon you today and bring it into the outside world. I sometimes say namaste, even though we've lifted
Yeah,
weights, because it brings it. And that's what you teach people. You want to find safe ways that people can, you know, achieve a lot of great things and to be the best they can.
I love
So,
that. And it's
so
it's the culture that you are breeding within your organization, right? People talk about corporate culture and all that kind of junk. There you are.
this
That's
bus-
your culture.
this business is a reflection of who I am, and it's greater than money. It's greater than anything. This is like my vessel. This is like my own body. This gym, and if it's not looking good, I'm not feeling good. So I want my gym to be inviting to people, and I want to be nice to people. And I know that whether they're rich or whether they're poor enough, fortunately, I've come up with a saying: I give 100% to the 1%. But what I really mean by that is I give everything I got to the people that to walk in their doors. And fortunately, they are very successful people. Occasionally, I've had people that aren't that successful. I mean, in terms of finances. I mean, everybody rates success in a different way. I see sometimes a teacher walk in. I say, "Wow, they're incredible human being. They spend their whole lives in public service trying to influence young minds and to make them solid citizens. And they're doing that at a discounted pay, you know?" And I'm like, wow, this is truly to me, they're rich. If you have purpose in your life, you're rich. It's not just about finances, you know?
Yeah.
But I unfortunately have the reality of having a daughter with special needs. And it is, even though she has benefits, it is very expensive and she requires a lot of things to keep her busy, to keep her occupied. And I can never stop working. But I love my daughter and I don't mind as long as I'm trying to find new ways, to help her and to keep her happy. Like she loves yoga. So I always have to have yoga classes for her. She loves movement. So I have to make sure that she's in a safe place where she can, walk for miles. I have to coach her every day, not to be too friendly to strangers or if somebody says something she doesn't like, to help her to self-regulate. These are all challenges every day. And then in addition to that, to running a business. But my wife and I do the best we can every day, and we try to make like a mom and pop operation. We're a dying breed. There's not many, mom and pop shops of any type anymore. You know,
Nope.
so
Nope.
we're like an endangered species, but we're doing
Yeah.
everything we can to slow down the extinction process
So,
and to and
and
Great legacy.
I love that. I haven't even thought about that, but to your point, you really kind of are, because more and more people are just they're shedding away from that. Um, you know, if nothing else, having a single income come from one source, right? Too many things
Right.
have happened over those years to say, you know what, let's both be in this business together. You know what, I'll be in the business. You hedge it with a little income on the side just in case the business doesn't work. For you, you didn't do that. Talk to me about some of those days when that risk maybe didn't seem like it was worth it. What was that
Well, there,
mental exercise like for you?
when things are really going wrong, look, I was born Jewish, but and I was at one point trying to decide whether or not I was going to become like very religious, an Orthodox Jew, or because I just had so many things happen to me in my life. I needed a greater feeling of faith and a greater connection to God. And I tried all the rituals, and I realized, you know what, Michael, you're not about rituals. You're a Zionist. You love the Jewish way of life, but you have to realize something. God just doesn't love Jews. He doesn't just love Catholics. He doesn't love, he loves everybody. So I decided I'm just going to extend great energy, kindness, charity in different ways to as many people as I can. And that's that's the philosophy. So when I was in tight situations, I sometimes, I had, didn't have money to pay bills, but I'd go out and I'd give $5 to the homeless guy. If I saw somebody on the subway, I'd give them a subway pass so that a
Hmm.
poor couple, and they get on the subway. Whatever little acts of charity that everybody can do every day, it makes the world a better place. Because there's so many homeless people, there's so many mentally ill people, there's so many unemployed people, so many people down on their luck. So whatever I'm going through, and as bad as I think it is, you go down and take a ride in New York City subways, you realize it's the best psychiatrist in the world. You get out of there, you got no problems. You say, you know what? I just got to go back to work, and I got to work harder, and I got to make things work. That's what I got to do. Can't feel sorry for myself because that's not going to get me anywhere. And
That's
that's the philosophy that people have to have.
that's probably one of the best lessons you can put out there.
Yes.
So tell me,
Yes.
what are some of those things, as you look at how the industry's changed over the last 30 years? What are some of those things that you see in it today, post COVID, in a in
In
an
fitness,
industry that helps when you're in person? Talk to me about some of those challenges that you have going forward right now.
well, what I see, so I have a very old fashioned view on exercise. I know for a fact that the most basic exercises are the best exercises. And that what influencers do is they go on Instagram, they go on YouTube, they make these overly created exercises that, first of all, a lot of people aren't even ready to do. And you have to master the basics. People with the best bodies in the world, because I've been in gyms, there's been very few days I've lived on this earth where I haven't gotten a workout in my 56 years. And it's always been the basics. And I've always done it with my clients, my friends who have been really fit, other trainers I know. They practice the basics, and they've been the least amount of injuries and the most success of building a physique, building strength, building self-confidence, and building wellness and mental wellness.
So as you get clients that come in and they see all this stuff online and they say,
They're like, "How
Michael, this
come I'm
is
not
kind of
doing this?
stuff,
How come
but
I'm not" Exactly. "How come I'm not doing this, Michael?"
how come I'm not
Because
doing
it's
it? Exactly. Why won't you do this kind of
because
stuff
it's
with me?
because
Because that's much more
because
fun.
it's not because it's not good for you. And what I do is, in order to alleviate boredom in the workout, I bring great conversation, and I make little variations. Like if we're using a barbell, I change it to dumbbells. If we're doing a unilateral, then I make it a bilateral. I do little changes, but I don't go away from my philosophy, because if someone's coming here to build strength and to build muscle, the number one key thing is consistency and doing the basic exercises and becoming stronger, using and getting doing practicing progressive resistance overload in a very safe way, not by making huge jumps every week. Let's say, instead of saying I want to, bench 300 pounds, let's say a person's at benching 100 pounds. Okay, well, this week we're benching 100 pounds. Maybe next week we'll be benching 105 pounds for some reps. Slow incrementation is great longevity for exercise. And this is one of the safest way, and consistency. And if you take time off, don't be afraid to backtrack, go lighter, warm up, and then get back into your routine. But consistency is the most important part of any fitness routine,
You
and
know,
simplicity.
if we went back to this podcast and we plucked out some of those words that you just finished saying and we put the word
Yes.
business in there instead of workout, it goes quite
Yes.
well, right? Consistency of not just showing up, but doing the right things, doing the basics and doing the basics well, and slow increments. There's no magic button. There's no secret
Mhm.
sauce. Slow increments to growth. If you do those things, you can build a business.
Correct. It's so simplistic. Workouts, business, life. It's just having grit, determination, and believing in yourself. You have to visualize that you can actually, first, you have to have a visualization that you can actually have this dream, this thing that you want to accomplish. And then you have to put it into action. And then you can see it happening over time. But if you don't, first of all, if you don't have the dream, if you can't visualize, nothing's ever going to happen. You got to sit, you got to meditate, you got to think, and you got to say, okay, how is core fitness going to be great today? How is my client session going to be great? How am I going to have a great workout? You know, just like that.
So I will ask you that as we get ready to wrap this up. What is that next generation for you? What do you see in the next handful of years for Core Fitness NYC?
I like to see multiple locations, and I like to see, that I'm in charge and I'm, letting vetting specific trainers to be in the organization so that everybody has a great, simple, and productive experience and a healthy experience.
That's
And also I'd
spectacular.
like to, write a book about everything that I've been through and talk about my philosophies and use it as a motivational tool for others.
And I think you do. You've got quite a book in that story of yours.
Yes. And then, also to become, as I become more successful, like maybe I can become philanthropic about the different causes, mental health care, cancer, anything where it can improve the quality of people's lives.
Well, and I think the advocacy that you talked about previously is a nice platform to begin that.
Yes. Because everybody, look, we all take in information, but some of us take it in a different way. And I like to use the term neurodiverse. Some people are neurodiverse. They see the world, we see the world, but we have better glasses on than they do. And we have to understand that everybody has the same prescription on their glasses or on their eyesight. And we have to have sympathy, empathy, and society has to start accepting the mentally ill and not to
No,
exclude them, but to include them.
no, I agree fully. And I think that's a great message to get out there. And I appreciate you sharing it with our listeners.
Thank you, Russ.
Anything I haven't asked that you want to throw out there? Anything you want to make sure we get in the show notes? Anything you want to touch on before we wrap up?
Maybe we talk about, hey, Michael, what types of clients have you trained over the years? Something like that, or
That's the
not
fun ones.
important.
I don't, um,
That's
wasn't sure
okay.
if we can get into this, but give me an idea of some of those people that you've trained over the years. Who can you
Oh,
talk about?
sure. I trained Michael Mazzamino, who's one of the most famous retired astronauts.
Yep.
Ivan Tornos, I've mentioned earlier, who is the president and CEO of Zimmer Biomet. The famous actress Candice Bergen. Goose, Top Gun, Anthony Edwards, I've trained in the past. Carl Bernstein, Roberta Flack, who recently passed away. These are just some of the people, former police commissioner Robert McGuire. These are just some of the people that I've trained over the years. And
And
even,
so, go ahead.
good friends with Larry Johnson, who helped give tremendous support to Core Fitness during COVID. Terrific guy.
Yep.
Larry was introduced to me by another friend trainer of mine, and basically I met him. I don't know, about 7 or 8 years ago. I was getting into the cryotherapy business at that time, um, and I learned a very valuable lesson because cryotherapy was the greatest thing that ever happened to Core Fitness at the beginning because it was the missing component of okay, a person works out, and now they may need some recovery, and I thought that cryotherapy was some of the greatest, you know, recovery tool that was ever invented because people didn't have to get into an ice bath. Went down to like a 175 degrees below zero, or whatever the temperature was at that time. And then you'd stay in there for 3 minutes. It wasn't so comfortable. You'd get out, you'd feel great. All your
Yeah.
aches, your pains, your stiffness, and even your mood was elevated. So it was attracting a lot of interesting, famous people. Larry Johnson even came in and said, "Hey, Michael, let me help you out. I'm going to get into the tank. You're going to Instagram it, and maybe it'll drive some more customers in here." And
Yeah.
he just the nicest guy. And he would help me with that. We actually made a video where gave him his first boxing lesson. He let me put that on Facebook. Such a terrific guy. And he gave us a lot of financial support too during COVID. And like when I hear like stories about some famous people or in the tabloids, don't always believe what you read because a lot of people are just haters and they make up stuff about people that aren't true. There's a lot of fake news out there.
A lot of fake news.
A lot of fake news. I've been very blessed to be exposed to people who from all spectrums of professions and to get a different perspective of how they see the world. So I've gotten a tremendous free education from the company I keep, and that is a blessing.
I love it.
Just a very
I
for,
love the
for,
clientele. I even like that phrase, the 100% to the 1%. And I think that to your comments after that, we're all there's a lot of people that are 1%, and it's not all dependent on their checkbook. So giving that 100% to that 1% to show up for you, and show up to have you work with them is incredible. So I love that.
and you want to know what that enables me that if I want to give something to the bottom percentile of people, occasionally I can do that too, which is great.
Yep. No, that's tremendous. Well, Michael, this has been a pleasure. I appreciate you jumping on with us.
Thank you so much, Russ. It's been an honor to be on your show.
Thank you. And that's a
Thank
wrap for
you.
this episode of Legacy Unscripted. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just let it sit. Take action today to build your future. Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who may need to hear it. If you've got something to share with us or you just want to connect, you know where to find me. Until next time, keep it real, keep it bold, and keep living your legacy.